I absolutely do not think they should have control over those tech decisions.
It's not about the GBS or IT controlling that. They're thinking together, putting their brains together, ensuring that is it something which is important for the organization?
There is more and more need for us to invest in technology, invest in having the right capabilities and foundations for us to be successful in the future.
It depends on what is the value which we are talking about, how that would be driven, and how much budget is it associated with that.
Welcome to GBS Masterminds podcast. CIOs are from Mars, GBS leaders are from Venus. I'm excited to have John, a CIO, and Ajay, a GBS leader. I'll let them introduce themselves. John, go ahead.
Hi, Sashi. So I'm John Hobson. I'm the European CIO of the Kellogg company based in Manchester in the UK.
Ajay.
Hi, Sashi. Hi, John. This is Ajay Wadhwa. I'm working with the Indorama Ventures as the Global Business Services Head.
All right. John and Ajay, I'm sure you live this every day at work. So I'm going to start with asking some bold and blunt questions, which I've heard from your counterparts in the industry. Maybe we'll start with you, John. There is a perception in the industry that the IT department is the office of the no. Is this perception true? What do you think?
I would more like to think of us as the office of the realist, Sashi. I think when you think about our two organizations as a CIO, really my goal is all about bringing value to the organization. And if I think from a GBS point of view, it's really all about efficiency. How can we maximize that? So it's natural that when GBS is out talking to technology vendors, they have a great story around value, around ROI. But I think where we bring our realism as CIOs is actually, okay, that those stories sound great, but what about, integration? What about how it fits with our landscape? How do we think about the sustainability of that solution?
Got it. Maybe a follow-up question to you, Ajay. There is a perception of the office of the Fairytale, where you might get a good demo from a vendor solution, has sexy UI, and you want it. Is that perception true?
I rather would say this is not a fairy tale perception. This is actually is a reality, global business services, and which the industry is living for last 30 plus years, ever since Jacques and Amex started this concept. And the organizations are really adding value through this global business services concept. But one thing is also true, that this GBS concept cannot work without the IT as a backbone. Anything and everything which GBS does, apart from people support, it's IT which it is supported by. So if IT doesn't support it, it's impossible to dream of a global business services, because where centralized functions are being supported for all the processes across the globe. So in a way, it's something which is a good collaborative sign-off or collaborative approach with the IT organization is a must for a GBS to succeed.
Got it. Maybe a follow-up question for you. Continuous ERP upgrades. I used to be an SAP developer when I started my career in 98. And since then, I've seen only like the SAP upgrade projects as the next big thing that will solve all the world's problems. But what do you think of that? It seems like IT has to focus on SAP or Oracle or whatever roadmap. But how do you create a best of both worlds?
I think it comes back a really tight view on value and what is the return on investment. I think, as you say, Shashi, keeping your ERP to some extent upgraded is a requirement and a need. But I think as an IT function, if that's where we think we can add value, where we can really do what our organizations need, then we're not going to be successful. Any CIO, I think, that does that is not going to last very long. I think what we have to be doing is using the provocation, particularly from our GBS counterparts, about look at here's a whole suite of different tools that might be able to bring us lots of great fairy tales. Which of those really deliver enough value for it to be worth us thinking about the complexity that they will bring, whether that's integration, sustainment, additional costs, and so on. If there's enough value that they bring, let's do it.
Got it. I know, John, you worked with GBS organizations in the past. Do you think the GBS should have more control over tech decisions because they have this KPIs that they need to hit, productivity, value, they're committing to the business execs? What do you think should be the type of influence/control a GBS exec should have?
So I absolutely do not think they should have control over those tech decisions. That absolutely should sit within the realm of the IT organization and the CIO. But what should be true is GBS and IT should work as really, really strong partners together. When I think about all of the functions that I work with, our IT function work with, I would say GBS is the one arguably that has the greatest need of IT support. So for IT, again, to be successful, we need to understand the fact that for a GBS organization, the vast majority of their improvement, their productivity, that their success is going to be tied to making the best use of technology, so both current and future. So for us to make sure we have that tight partnership and helping the GBS organization to understand how the technology solutions they have linked to the wider organization is absolutely critical. So for example, GBS might be pushing for a brand new solution within the order to cash space. I see it as the IT team's accountability to say, well, that might work great for you, but let's make sure we think about the impact to the sales organization, the wider organization up and downstream, not just you.
Got it. Ajay, what's your point of view?
So I think I agree with John. It's not about controlling on the decisions, whether it is budget or the resource allocation for these projects. So it's all about understanding the need and then accordingly taking a decision that how we need to work together to implement the GBS initiatives. Let's say one thing is very important. We all need to understand that the resources or the budget or anything which we are investing, that is for the benefit of the organization and driving value through that. So it's not about the GBS or IT controlling that. They're thinking together, putting their brains together, ensuring that is it something which is important for the organization to achieve and how we are driving value through it. That's important. And then agreeing on what are the priorities at the moment, considering the different activities or different projects IT would have at their hand or the GBS would their hand. So marrying on the priorities and then driving it through so that it could be a win-win approach and the organization gets the benefit rather than the rifts around it.
Got it, Ajay. So maybe on that note, has there been a situation in the past where you went to IT and the answer started with a no and you're able to convince them to a yes? And maybe if you can quote an example.
Yeah, a couple of times it does happen. I mean, as GBS, we always are trying to achieve more and drive value and then accelerate it as fast as possible. So it requires the new technologies to be deployed and new infrastructure to be deployed. For that, we always need to go to IT organization and asking that this is something which we need to achieve faster and we need to drive the productivity or the new technology to be implemented. We always get that organization or IT organization is busy with multiple other projects and they don't have time for these initiatives. And that's where the question or the point comes is how do we kind of bring the technology which we need to implement, how is it going to benefit the overall organization? Is it just for the sake of it, we need to implement it, or is it driving real benefit for the organization? And then discussing about how do we fit into the overall priorities of the organization or IT organization as well, so that we can really make it a win-win situation and they also can put in the efforts to the overall objective of the GBS as well. But that can happen only if we sit across the table, prioritize the things, and if we have the resources, sometimes IT may not have the resources or may not have budget, then how do we manage it and whether it is outsourced to a third party and driving it, but at the end, ensuring that the objective of both IT and GBS are met in a collaborative way.
Got it. My next question is kind of switching topics on RPA. there was a lot of hype around RPA in the past, and now we're hearing some mixed reviews. I'm just curious if you've had any first-hand experience and how has it gone? Maybe we can start with you, John.
Yeah, some time back, we took a step in to RPA, trying to drive on a global basis through our GBS organization. And at least from a European perspective, really we try to start within our captive organization, within the kind of finance record to report area. And what I really saw was some challenges. So what we really found was, as we tried to kind of go deeper into that and try to build some belief and some momentum behind it, we found it was difficult to find the right people who really had the necessary technical and process understanding to start really kind of, putting it together, building it up, looking at how this might work. And I guess on top of that was the reality that, was the business case really there? Was the return on investment really there? Given the upfront investment plus the sustainment that was needed, when he thought about the limited number of headcount that we could really identify to come out, which was already in a captive location. So it kind of didn't really take off for those reasons. So that's kind of been my primary experience, to be quite honest.
Okay, got it. Ajay, any experience with RPA?
Yeah, Shashi. In fact, my experience with RPAs is normally people make a big hype around it, or we need to automate the processes and drive efficiencies. But sometimes you really find that these RPAs are basically the macros where you don't need to disturb anybody. You can just go ahead and implement it. But RPA to me is a well thought through strategy which a team needs to work on. And as John mentioned, we need to really find out what are the benefits, what is the business case around it, and accordingly putting the resources and efforts behind it. And that also involves the involvement of the IT team as well, the experts who have the expertise on the RPA development and the execution part of it. So then it has to be well thought through processes so that we can have put the right people and right amount of effort and driving towards the desired business value for this.
Got it. Okay. I think the next question for the two of you is traditional enterprises like yours. You do have IT budgets, but a lot of it goes after maintenance and upgrades of the existing ecosystem, and very little is available. So I'm just curious, how do these budgets work? If some team wants to drive a digital transformation, who owns the money? Who would sponsor? What is your advice to GBS leaders out there, John, to get money for their projects?
We're a food company. We're not a fintech company. We're not a technology company. So, a lot of our capital investment, as you can imagine, goes into our factories, food production, safety, exactly as you would expect. But there is more and more need for us to invest in technology, invest in having the right capabilities and foundations for us to be successful in the future. And it very simply comes back to business case for us. So, matching up the investments to the strategic priorities we have as an organization, and making sure that they will drive the best benefit, and those kind of projects at the end of the day will get approved and we'll do them. I think when it comes to GBS, almost by its nature, that's run and funded on a global basis. And my experience has really been, at least currently we have an ex-CFO running our GBS organization, and what I've really noticed is the quality that drives into business cases and the thought process that sits behind that. And as a result, I think our GBS organization comes with business cases that they're not just something on a piece of paper which falls over very quickly when you start to try and dig into it. They stand up very well, and that's something that, as that's proven out on a few occasions, it gives a lot of confidence to people that, when the GBS organization comes with a good business case, we should trust it and we should go after it. It's all about the business case linked to strategic priorities of the organization.
Ajay, how do you get IT funding for your projects?
Shahi, I think I would put it in two broad categories. So if I go by my experience, the way we have done transformations and digitalization, so some would be long term, which the overall organization would benefit from. It's not only about GBS, but there would be some GBS specific digitalization and transformation. So if I talk about from an overall perspective, so we have a digitalization team to drive the digital initiatives across the organization. For example, if we have to implement a procurement tool, source to pay, so that's going to benefit the procurement organization and also the GBS and the overall finance organization, because it improves the end-to-end process. From that perspective, it is like an organization, we take a decision, implement it, and that's fits into the overall strategy of the organization and drive the efficiency. Again, definitely the overall business case, we look at it and ensure that the value is generated through that. And if I go specific to the GBS transformation and digitalization, it depends on what is the value which we are talking about, how that would be driven, and how much budget is it associated with that. So that's how we will take these two separate digitalization and transformation initiatives.
Got it. Seems like there is a consensus between both a CIO and a business exec that if there is value and a strong business case, then it can be funded. Maybe that kind of dovetails into the next topic, which is, what do you think is the biggest challenge there? Like, I mean, ultimately, maybe your teams have to make commitment to some business case ROI, right? Whether it is productivity, whether it is some KPI, maybe not make this a pattern. Maybe John, will start with you.
Yeah, and I think the biggest piece for me is, again, GBS is a global organization and comes with global business case. I sit in a region and run my region against my regional priorities and with a regional team. I'm always skeptical that the business case and the way of implementation has not included or thought about actually what it's going to really mean for me in the region. So when I look at that project, again, something that I'm much more close to, much more confident, and I see exactly what it's going to do for me directly in my region, it's very easy for me to choose the regional option rather than the GBS option. So I'd say that's the challenge or the natural skepticism that I often see when trying to make a call about how much to get behind, GBS kind of initiated projects.
So Ajay, what's your point of view? Seems like on the business case, it is the business that has to commit, and probably you have to rally your own mid-management and troops around this. So how do you go about doing this?
Yeah, in fact, Shashi, I can relate to real life experience on this. We had the strategy defined for GBS and what we need to achieve, timelines defined, and we need to go after that and achieve it. And then COVID also came in. At the same time, we did not consider the priorities which IT organization has at their hand. One, because of the multiple projects they are working on, and on top of that, COVID added complexities to them. But we, as GBS, had our own priorities to achieve, and we had to go for it. So there were some challenges around it because I wanted those to be completed. But at the end, we both of us, the CIO and as GBS, we sat together that how do we address this? Because we both need to achieve our objectives, but though we had to defer the timelines, being realistic around it, but we ensured that it is not impacting the health of the employees on both sides, and also it's not putting undue pressure on the resources and also on the budget side. So that's how at the end it comes to, are we understanding each other and prioritizing the things effectively?
Got it. Well, I know John and Ajay, I know how busy you are. Thank you so much for being our guests here.